we're gonna wait a couple minutes before we get started. But thank you guys for coming, stopping by, I guess. Yeah. Hi. These are just some of the flowers you could be making. Mm-hmm. How are you guys doing? No. Hey everyone. I know we miss you guys too. Hopefully you're safe and healthy at home. Can you guys hear me okay? Good. Awesome. Great. Okay, it is 11 o'clock, so I'm gonna get started, and hopefully more people will join. I have a tendency to ramble on, so they'll probably just miss all the fun informational things and just hop on when we actually start crafting. So yeah, once again, thank you guys for coming and joining me on this live craft tutorial. It is my first live thing, so bear with me. My name is Karina. I am the graphic designer at the Morton Grove Public Library. And like I'm also a craft enthusiast. So figured that to kind of fill our day, just for a little bit at least, I would show you how to do paper flowers at home. Also to add some color, just because it's going to be so gloomy the next couple days. So hopefully you all have the materials that we had sent out the material list, and hopefully you guys had the stuff at home. I tried to pick a craft that had things, like we have tissue paper or wrapping tissue paper and some wire. So hopefully you guys had the materials at home so you can participate. The materials list did have things for one bloom, so I don't know how many you guys have prepped. I will probably be on here for a little bit, just doing a few flowers. Yeah, the way I'm thinking this will go is that I'll go through the materials and then we'll go right into the demo. So today we are going to be doing paper flowers. Once again, it's a really great way to personalize things. So like if you're doing like a party or something themey and a color, it's a great way just to kind of make it to your theme or your color scheme. It's super easy, as you will see. And what I like about it is that there's a lot of variations to it. Like obviously I did tell you guys to cut your papers at 6 by 6, which will give you a bloom that is about this size, which is a nice size bloom for like a vase. But obviously depending on your project, you can cut your paper larger or smaller according. So bigger blooms, like if you're doing an 8 by 8, you'll want to cut it to 8 by 8. If you want smaller, like if I wanted to do, like I had mentioned, if you don't have any wire to do ribbon, if you wanted to like do a headband or like a hair tie, if you found that a 6 by 6 was too big, cut it down smaller, 4 by 4, 5 by 5, just to kind of see what is fitting to like your child's head or your head. So some blooms might just look bigger or smaller depending on the head you're putting it on if you're doing a headband. So there is a lot of variations, also in size, but also in look. So we will go through the different kind of petal cuts that you can do. So like this one is my go-to. It's like, it's reminiscent of like a peony. So that's the scalloped cut, but you can see how even by just switching what you're cutting the ends to, you can get a different feel, a different look. So this one is fringe. This one is like a heart. So you can see that the scallops on this petal is a lot tinier than this one. And then you can do a triangle, so like more lotus. So it depends on the kind of flower that you're kind of going with. And obviously if you guys want to cut it in other in other shapes, feel free to do that. So yeah, let me go through the materials real quick. I had told you that for this, I like using wrapping tissue paper. When I first learned how to do this, they actually used Kleenex, but because Kleenex and things of that nature high demand right now, I would not use Kleenex. I would use just tissue paper. I did try to use like normal paper. So this is a sales paper, so newspaper. And even though it does, I mean, you get the kind of feel for it, it is harder. The paper is stiffer. So I did find that it tore a lot more easily. Also, you know, it doesn't have that kind of like, you can't really squish it up. Well, I guess you could, whatever. As much as maybe you could with a thinner paper. So, I mean, if you don't have wrapping tissue paper at home, you could try it with just normal paper. Just know that thinner would probably give you more flexibility in like just fluffing the petals and such. But yeah, try it. If you don't have tissue paper, try it with normal paper. It is a little more fussy though, just to let you know. But that actually kind of looks like a brush or whatnot. So yes, so wrapping tissue paper is my go-to just because it is thin, and you can play around with it a lot more. So we did cut the sheets down to 6 by 6. Once again, if you want bigger blooms, you cut it bigger. If you want smaller blooms, cut it smaller. But square is kind of like my go-to. And then you will need at least 6 sheets for the 6 by 6. Once you go bigger, 6. So this is a 6 sheet flower, and you see how it does have a lot of layers, which is great. If you go bigger, because it's going to be a bigger bloom, you may need to add more paper just because there's going to be a lot more space to fill. So yeah, just keep that in mind. If you are going bigger, I would probably add a couple more sheets in there just so that it fills out, so it's not so wimpy in the middle. If you're going smaller, maybe take a sheet out just because it will become a really tight a tight flower at that point, and you might have some trouble, you know, getting all of the layers out or pieced together or separated. So yeah, so 6 sheets for the project that we're working on today. That's really the main thing, the bloom. I just happen to have a lot of floral wire for other projects, so that's what I'm using. It is a floral wire that I cut down. I think this is about like 9 inches, but with the wire, it really just depends on what you're using this for. If it's for a vase, then you kind of need it to have a longer stem. If it's for, you know, something for your hair, obviously ribbon is great. You don't want to use wire, or maybe you do, you want to like stick it in. So you may not need a longer wire for that. For those folks that didn't have long floral wire, but you have pipe cleaners, that's great. Once again, depending on what you're going to use it for, you can either cut it down shorter if you want to make more blooms, or taller, depending on what you're actually wanting to use this for. For those folks that don't have wire or pipe cleaner that's longer, but you do have like twist ties or paper clips, you can use that just for the initial like making the bloom. But if you, in the event that you wanted to make it into something with a stem, you can then later on, once you have it on here, you can just tape it to like a dowel or a skewer to get that length, and then maybe like wrap it in floral wire or whatnot, unless you like this look, which is great too. So yeah, so you can use all of those things, and once we start doing the demo, you'll see that these are all work. It just kind of depends on if you need the length of it for later. And then what you're gonna need is scissors, and those are the 3 things, and that's why I really like this craft. It's not a lot of things, and you can produce a lot of really pretty flowers. So yeah, so hopefully you guys are set with your supplies. I'm gonna go right into it. So you're gonna take your 6 sheets of tissue paper, right? So you're just gonna lay it flat, and hopefully you can see this. it's going to be an accordion fold. So what you're going to do is you're going to take from the bottom and you're going to fold up, maybe, I want to say like in between, like 3/4 of an inch. So I wouldn't go super thick, but I wouldn't go super thin. Like, so, and these are going to be what kind of dictates the width of these, your petals. So I would just maybe a little less than an inch. I would fold up, flip over, fold down, and then you're just going to keep doing that. Flip again, fold up, flip, fold down. And for the most part, you are trying to keep it all flushed with each other, okay? And then just keep flipping and folding until you get to the very end. So like I see that my last fold isn't going to be exactly the same thickness as the rest, which is fine. So you should have something that looks like this, and that is an accordion fold. So it shouldn't wrap around each other. So like you shouldn't have like a tube. It should be something that looks like this. Okay? All right. So you're going to keep it like that. And then once you have that, you're going to fold that in half. All right. So then now I'm going to talk about the variations, like I mentioned in the beginning, that there are a lot of things that you could do depending on the type of flower that you want it to look like. So at this point, you're going to have to decide, like what the ends of your petals are going to look like. So I just have a couple things to show you. So this is the triangular petal. So not that you're going to do this now because I want to go through all of it first. What you're going to do then is you're just going to cut it into a tip. And that's for this look. Okay? We'll go through it. I just want to go through, we'll go through it later. I just want to tell you what the variations are. So if you wanted something like this, you would cut it into a tip, to a triangle. If you wanted, like my go-to is the scalloped, you would, instead of a tip, you would then cut the edges into just a rounded edge, okay? So that is for this type of flower. The fringe would just be, you would just fringe the top. And for this, like I didn't go very far down, but I can see that, like the flower would be really nice if it went, if the fringe was longer. Just know that when I have fringed longer lengths, it is harder to kind of pull apart. So maybe wait until you see like the pulling apart portion of this before you fringe. Or if you're adventurous, fringe it and then just kind of see. But I do like the way the way the fringe looks. But yes, that's what the cut lines would be if you wanted to do the fringe. And then last, the hearts, the edge you would cut into like the top part of a heart. I typically do not like trace, but if you find that that's easier, go for it. So if you needed to, like trace where the heart things would be, you could just take a pencil and kind of trace it over. But I am going to go really easy and just do the scalloped. So like once again, it would be like that. So you see how we fold it. We are going to do both sides, but one side at a time, because this is going to be super thick to try to cut through, because that's a lot of layers. So what I like to do is just one side at a time. So remembering that this is for the scallop, this is the shape that I'm kind of going to try to go for. I'm just going to take my shears, and once again, there's two sides, but you're only going to do the one side. I'm going to just cut and make the half circle or the rounded like that. Okay, so that's one side. Obviously, if you guys wanted to do any of the other ones, cut your ends to whatever shape you want your petals to be. But I'm going to go with scalloped. So I have one side, and you see how now I'm going to do the next. I'm going to fold it, and I'm actually just going to, like use that first side as my template and just cut the second side. It doesn't have to be perfect really, because once, as you can tell, like once we start pulling things apart, you can't even tell that, the two sides weren't symmetrical or even. So so once you cut the one side, you're going to use that side to do the template. So hopefully you guys have something that looks like this in whatever tip you want your flower to be. So yeah, so once you have that, you're going to take whatever wire you have. So whether it's a, floral wire or the pipe cleaner or the paper clip. The important thing with the wire is that because we are twisting, you need something that is easy to twist. So paper clip is probably, out of the ones that I have here, is the thickest, but as long as you're able to twist it so that the flower part is secure, that's what's the important thing. So if you are working with any of these, you're going to maybe go about 1.5 inches down, and then you're just going to bend, and you're going to make a little hook using your wire like that. Okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to, it doesn't matter which way, so you're just going to take this and you're going to insert it in that hook like that. And you see how, remember when we folded? So that's kind of where you want the hook to be. So that way it's evenly in the middle. And what you're going to do, once it's in the hook, you're going to start twisting. And this is where we kind of just need it to be easy to twist. I don't want you guys to hurt yourself or whatnot. So floral wire is pretty easy depending on the gauge that you're using to twist. So you just want something that looks like this, just to hold it in place. You want it to be stable enough that it's not slipping through, but don't feel like you have to like twist it and then like it starts to get, like, you want it to be flat. You don't want it to kind of be pinched together. Like that might be too strong a pinch, I guess, or too tight a hold. But you do want it so that it's not, it doesn't move a ton, or like it doesn't slip out very easily. All right, so once you have something that looks like this, we're gonna start taking the petals and fluffing them, okay? So you see how we have 6 layers because it's a 6-sheet tissue paper flower. You can fan it out like this. I go one side at a time. Some people, when I've seen them, they do alternate. I don't find that really makes a difference in the way the flower looks, but if you wanted to try it, go for it. So the important thing about this is that it is paper, so just be careful with it, just because it will tear. And I tear mine all the time, and it's okay, once again, because of all the layers. If there's a little tear in there, you really won't be able to tell. So it's forgiving in that sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go layer by layer, very gently, taking the first layer, so the innermost layer, and I'm just going to separate it from the rest. And this is where you kind of want to tug a little bit, just gently though, so that way it's as close to the wire as possible. Like, you don't want your flower to have like this much room. You kind of want to pull it as close to the center as possible. That way it doesn't leave like a lot of room in the center, which, I mean, if that's an okay look for you, then fine. But try to get it as close to the center as possible. So that was my first layer. I'm going to go to my second, try to separate that. So my second layer, very gently, just, there you go. So 2. I guess this is one again. Next one. And you're just going to do that for each layer that you have. Okay? So once you've got that one side, you're going to go to the second. So you're going to just flip it over. Same deal. And this is where, when I did it with the newspaper, like right there I tore, and I'm not worried about it. Like sometimes it tears within the folds and the creases. Sometimes it tears the whole like petal part, and it's okay. Once again, once you have the actual flower bloom made, you really won't be able to tell. So for the second thing, you're just going to try very carefully, once again, trying to get it to the center, as centered as possible, into the center as possible. You're going to do that for each layer. All right. Okay, so now you should have, and because it's tissue paper, and this is why I like using tissue paper, you can manipulate it easier without really worrying about like tearing so much. You can just kind of manipulate the petals like that, and there is your flower. I do find that a lot of the times when I do this, it doesn't do the full, like a cup like that. So normally there is, because it is 2 halves, you see how there's usually this like V, because it's the 2 halves coming together. If you don't like that look, then you can, the way to, like this one I had to tape. So if you find that you want it to be more, you know, like rounded, what I like to do is just, I take tape, just tape. And what I do is where the V's are, so like if you don't like this look, I would just tape, and I usually tape from the inside. I would just tape the last two layers together like that. So that way it just closes it, and it kind of just makes it that rounded bottom instead of the V. So if you don't like the V, you are just going to tape, add a little bit of tape on the inside of the last 2 layers, and then voila. You guys got it? Was that too fast, too slow? I'm not really sure. But yeah, so super easy. I'm going to go through another one. So I don't know if you guys are just joining us. You can come along again. You know, like, I don't know how many you guys prepped in terms of materials. So I'm going to do one again, maybe show you a different petal edge. So yes. So I'm going to do this one, and the last sheet I only had 5, but and that's okay. All right, so we're going to go through it again. So we're going to take our 6 sheets of 6 by 6 paper, tissue paper, and what we're going to do is we're going to lay it flat. We are going to start accordion fold. So you're going to take the edge closest to you, and you're going to fold up, and I would go about like 3/4 of an inch up. I wouldn't go really thick because you want several folds. Like if you went like 2 inches, that would really only be like 3 folds. So you kind of want multiple folds. So I find that between a 1/2 inch and an inch is kind of a perfect thing. Yes, you could do multiple colors. Maybe I will do it for this one. Good question. So, okay, so multiple colors would be, you would have, let's say your 5 or 6, and we're going to do a center that is different, a different color, or you could just do, you know, like you can pick a different color for each layer if you wanted, depending on how many color flowers you want. But I'm going to do it so that way it is a mostly pink flower with a yellow center, which I think would look really nice. So what you would just do is you would take, if you're working with a 6 sheet layer, you would just remove 1 and replace, so you'd have 5 of the same color and then replace 1 of the different color that you want. Okay, so we're going to do that with this one. You're going to, okay, so start again. You're going to fold the edge closest to you about 3/4 of an inch up, like that. And then you're going to just flip over and you're going to fold down, crease, flip, and fold up. You're just going to keep doing that. You want the layers as flushed with each other as possible. So like that, hopefully. Okay. All right. So once we've got that, once again, the 2 layers, the 2 colors, which is a good idea. You're going to fold that in half like that. Okay. So for those people that are, for those of you that are just joining us, I do want to go through the different petal edges that you can choose. just so that everyone is kind of on the same page. So different, the ones that we just created was a scalloped, so it kind of is more reminiscent of a peony, and these are just kind of what we're going to be cutting, what you could cut the ends of your accordion folded sheets to be. So if you want a triangle, you are going to then cut it on an angle, so like triangle or a pointed edge. If you wanted fringe, you would cut it so that they're just a bunch of lines going down. Maybe we'll do this as fringe so that way you guys can see it. There is also a heart, so if you wanted smaller scallops, you would do a heart. As I mentioned earlier, I tend to just cut it without tracing, but if you find that it's easier for you to trace it with paper, with a pencil first, go for it, and then cut that out. So we're gonna do fringe just because I feel like that would be a fun one for this. So fringe, again, would be something like that. You're going to do one side at a time, because if you tried to cut all of this, it probably wouldn't be as flushed with each other because it's super thick. So I would just go one side at a time. So I'm gonna do fringe, and I'm gonna go maybe an inch down, so from the end to about here, okay? And really with the fringe, you are just going to, I'm gonna try to get at least 4 or 5 cuts out of here, so not super thick, because once again with the fringe it is nicer to have like thin, a lot of thin lines versus like if I just did that one cut, so like super thick. So I would go as thin as possible without cutting the fringe. You will, there is a tendency to like slip and cut through, so I don't know how to properly show this. So I'm just gonna cut, that was 1 cut, 2, so I'm gonna get just 3 out of this, I guess, and 3. So it looks like that. Obviously you can go as thin as you want without trying to cut all of, all of the layers off. So once I've got one side, this one you can't really trace, you just have to do the other side with the fringe. So I'm just gonna cut the second side. 2, 3. All right. Okay. So I have now fringed the 2 sides because that's the ends that I'm gonna want to do. If you wanted to do the pointed or the rounded or the heart, feel free to have done that on one side and then use that side as the template to cut the other. All right. So for this, the next step will be the wire. So once again, if you're using floral wire, that's great. Pipe cleaner is great. Things that are easily twistable is perfect for this, just because you don't want to hurt your hand. But also if you are using twist ties or paper clips, depending on what you want your final project to be, you can always just tape it to a dowel if you find that it's too short to do anything with. All right, so for this, you're going to take your wire and you're going to go about 1.5 inches down, and you're going to bend to make a hook. Once you have the hook, we're going to insert the paper. When you are doing a dual tone or like a multi-tone, if you want depending on what you want the actual flower to be, like for me, I want the yellow to be the center of this flower, which means I'm going to make sure that that yellow is what is on top, is hitting the top of the hook. Because you see how because we're working this way, the yellow is going to be the first one. So it's going to be the center of this flower. If you wanted the yellow or your second color to be the bottom, you would then just have it so that it's at the bottom. So it's going to be pink in the middle and then the yellow and at the bottom. So like the cup of it. So depending on where you want that actual like second color to fall in your flower, it would depend on this part right here, whether it's the top so that it's in the center, or if you want it to be the bottom of your flower, it needs to be it needs to be this way with the colored sheet at the bottom. Does that make sense? So I'm gonna have it so that the color part, the different color is in the center. So I'm gonna do that, and I'm going to just twist my wire all the way down. Once again, you want it secure enough that it's not slipping off, but you don't want it to just pinch at the center, like because you kind of want it to be as flat as possible. So something like this. You should have something like this. And then once you are at this point, you are going to start fluffing. So you're going to take your first layer. Once again, because we are doing a two-tone for this, it is my yellow because I want that to be in the center. And you're just going to lightly just fluff up. You're going to do this for every layer that you have. The second, third, fourth, and sixth. So that's what the one half of the fringe flower looks like. So once you've got the first half done, you're gonna just move over to the second, and once again, lightly try to get it as close to the center as possible so you're not leaving a big gap in the center. So first layer, second, so this is where whenever I'm doing fringe and I pull from the fringe part, sometimes the fringe does rip off, which is fine because once again, as a whole, as a bloom, you won't be able to tell that some parts have been ripped off. That and this, like that. So that is the fringe flower with a different color center, which is awesome idea. So yeah, that's what that would look like. Once again, if you feel like it's not doing it so bad, if you don't like the V, you can always just tape the two sides together on both ends, just so that you can make the more cupped look. But yeah, that's the fringe. Yeah, so just a few things, I guess. I don't really know how to wrap this up. If you wanted to do something with, you're welcome. If you wanted to do something with ribbon, you would do the same thing. And I have, hold on, I'm just gonna do this real quick. So you would just cut your ribbon to whatever length. Like if you're gonna do like a headband, obviously measure, just add a little bit more just because you don't need a lot. It's gonna replace the wire. So let's say, and I'm not really gonna go through this. Let's say you just have that, and I haven't cut it obviously. So instead of wire, but you're gonna do ribbon, you're just going to, like in the center, like we did with the wire. So same thing, you're just gonna put it in the middle, and you're just gonna tie. I would double knot this just because we want it to be secure. Let me do that real quick. Like that. And similar to the wire, you want it so that you are able to hold it this way. Obviously, it's not going to be as secure or like as stiff or as firm as the wire, but you get the gist of it. So you want it to be, you want the knot to be at the bottom, not in the center of this, because you want to hold it like that. And then when you're at this point, you're going to fluff the petals like we did. So that, I just wanted to show you how ribbon would be. So yeah, you just hold that. Not that we actually hold that when we fluff, but you want it to look like this, and then you're going to start fluffing the two sides. Okay. Yeah, so that's really nice for like for headbands and things you can do for the ends of your hair, bracelets, I don't know. So yeah, just other ideas. I guess. So yeah, so that really is as simple as that craft is. Hopefully you guys had fun and were able to like create it at your homes. Once again, my name is Karina. We are hoping to do maybe more of these. Just let us know if you have any suggestions of crafts to do live. Hopefully it's with materials that we can find at home, that you will have at home. Yeah, so just let us know if you have any suggestions of different crafts that we may be able to do via live. If you are doing this at home and you have created blooms, like if you're going to spend the weekend just making paper flowers, take photos and share it with us. Tag us on Instagram or Facebook. Thank you guys for joining me. Hopefully that went well for you. Yeah, stay healthy, stay safe, and hopefully we will see you again. Bye.